You wake up to the sound of a leaf blower outside your $4,500 a month bedroom apartment in Echo Park. Except it's not a leaf blower. It's someone screaming into the void. A man, shirtless, barefoot, staring into traffic like it owes him an explanation. He's been camped outside your building for 3 days. You think about calling someone. But who? The cops? A social worker? Ghostbusters? Then you remember, this is normal now. Welcome to Los Angeles. Spring 2025. The sun is out. The palm trees are swaying, and the city of dreams has become a slow-burning dystopia, where more than 75,000 people are homeless on any given night. That's not a typo. That is stadium-sized tragedy unfolding in plain view. And guess what? It's getting worse. And if this feels more like Blade Runner than brunch in LA, hit subscribe, because we're not just documenting the downfall, we're decoding it. The numbers don't lie, they just hurt. Let's start with the cold, hard data. In 2023, LA County reported around 69,000 unhoused individuals. That was already horrifying. But in just 2 years, the number jumped over 75,000. A record-breaking surge no politician wants to talk about unless there's a ribbon-cutting ceremony involved. That's a 9% increase. And within that, the number of people living completely unsheltered, no car, no couch, no cot, has exploded. Picture entire encampments stretching along the 101, the 5, the 10, like a grim tour of California's failed promises. This isn't a blip. It's a trend line that's bending downward like a sinkhole under a luxury condo. What's especially staggering is how quickly those numbers rise compared to the painfully slow pace of housing development. For every 100 people pushed into homelessness, LA builds maybe 1 or 2 shelter beds. The math is brutal and unforgiving. And it's not just about the big numbers. Micro trends reveal disturbing truths. Black residents make up 8% of LA's population, yet they account for 30% of the unhoused. Veterans, youth, and LGBTQ plus individuals are also disproportionately affected. This is not random. This is systemic. Add to that the undocumented and uncounted, the people living in garages, cars, warehouses, and storage units, and the real number may be closer to 90,000. That's not just a failure of policy. That's a humanitarian disaster hiding in plain sight. But hiding it is what the city has perfected. Statistics are buried in dense reports. Language is sanitized. Unhoused replaces homeless. But the reality on the street, that hasn't softened. It's sharpened. Who's homeless in LA? Spoiler, it could be you. You might imagine it's all addicts or mentally ill people. That's the narrative politicians love. Keeps things neat. But 1/3 of LA's homeless population is newly homeless. First-timers. People who were working not long ago. Single moms. Seniors. Gig workers. People who DoorDash your ramen last week. The median rent in LA is now pushing $3,200 for a 1-bedroom. Combine that with wages that haven't kept up since Obama left office, and you got a ticking eviction time bomb under half the city. You don't have to be irresponsible to end up on the street here. You just have to be unlucky. And that's exactly what's happening. One medical emergency, one missed paycheck, one landlord cashing out for a condo conversion, and your life can implode. The social safety net, full of holes. The housing market, predatory. Young people with degrees are living in vans. Seniors with pensions are couch surfing. Families are doubling and tripling up in apartments meant for one. And the gig economy? It's not lifting people out of poverty. It's pushing them off a financial cliff, paycheck by unpredictable paycheck. This is no longer about poor choices. It's about a city designed for the wealthy, where landlords can evict for profit, where tenant protections are paper thin, where developers build for Airbnb guests, not residents. And with COVID-era protections expiring, evictions are surging. Courts are backlogged, legal aid is stretched, and thousands of people are losing homes before they even get a hearing. It's not just a housing crisis. It's a justice crisis. The system is helping. Kinda. So what's LA doing about it? Well, technically, the city and county have poured billions into the issue. There are shiny new offices with acronyms like LASA, Measure H funding, and emergency housing programs. And yet, the tent cities keep growing. A recent audit found that one project spent $837,000 per unit on a homeless housing development. You heard that right. Nearly $1 million per apartment. Enough to buy a mansion in Texas and a lifetime supply of kombucha. That figure is an anomaly. It's the norm. Construction costs are inflated by bureaucracy, union restrictions, legal battles, and consultants billing hundreds an hour to strategize homelessness away from behind a desk. Meanwhile, the actual housing gets delayed for years. LA has built thousands of units, but not fast enough and not for the people who need them most. Some housing sits empty because of red tape. Others are so riddled with eligibility requirements that people just give up trying. And then there's corruption. Developers pocket millions in contracts. Non-profits hoard funding for overhead. Audits get buried. Promised reforms turn into press conferences. The machine keeps spinning, and the people it's supposed to serve get crushed under it. Even when someone gets housing, wraparound services, mental health support, job training, addiction counseling are underfunded or non-existent. You can't just give someone a key and walk away. But that's what happens, and the cycle repeats. Venice Beach, from surf to squalor, once a tourist magnet in boho paradise, Venice Beach now looks like a social collapse simulator. The boardwalk is lined with tents. Joggers dodge human waste. Shop owners live in fear of break-ins, not from some criminal underworld, but from desperate, starving neighbors. And here's the irony. The people living in million-dollar homes just feet away, they're calling private security to keep out people who literally grew up down the street but can't afford to live here anymore. Gentrification isn't just pushing people out, it's pushing them into the streets. The city tried to clear Venice in 2021, moving hundreds of people into motels. But most of those placements were temporary, and when the funding dried up, the encampments came back. Only this time, bigger and angrier. Local businesses are closing because foot traffic has dropped. Tourists don't want to Instagram poverty. And residents feel trapped between empathy and fear, unsure whether to hand someone a sandwich or call the cops. Venice is a cautionary tale for every LA neighborhood. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. No amount of beachside property taxes will shield you from the fallout of a collapsing housing system. And yet, developers keep flipping properties, Airbnb hosts keep profiting, and city planners keep approving luxury condos with no affordable units in sight. Venice didn't fail. It was failed by policy, by politics, and by profit. The rent is due, and so is a reckoning. Rent control in LA sounds like a safety net, until you realize how many people don't fall under it. Newer buildings, corporate landlords, and just cause eviction loopholes have turned housing into a legal minefield. A single missed rent payment can start a countdown to disaster. And who owns most of LA's rental stock now? Not mom-and-pop landlords, but hedge funds and private equity firms. They gobbled up foreclosed homes after 2008 and turned them into overpriced rentals. These aren't neighbors. They're spreadsheets in New York skyscrapers, squeezing every dime from working Angelinos. Many tenants are now spending over 50% of their income on rent, a level experts consider severely rent-burdened. That means if your car breaks down, you skip dinner. If you need to see a doctor, you miss rent. LA isn't just expensive, it's economically abusive. Meanwhile, attempts to build more affordable housing get stonewalled by neighborhood groups who don't want those people nearby. Zoning laws still protect vast swaths of land for single-family homes, choking supply and inflating prices for everyone else. This isn't sustainable. The housing market has become a powder keg, and every eviction notice is another spark. At some point, the reckoning arrives, not with fireworks, but with silence, empty apartments, boarded up storefronts, and a city that slowly forgets what it felt like to be livable. Mental health? Try no health. Around 30% of LA's homeless population has a serious mental illness. But even that number underplays what's really going on. Because in LA, even if you want treatment, there's often nowhere to go. Clinics are full. Hospitals discharge you in 72 hours with a pamphlet and a good luck. Psych beds? Scarce. Street meds? Plentiful. You might think this is where the city steps in. Instead, many people end up in jail, because that's become LA's de facto mental health system: iron bars and underpaid guards. It's cheaper to criminalize pain than to treat it. Psychiatric ERs turn people away for not being acute enough. Mobile crisis teams are understaffed. The wait for residential treatment can be months. Months a vulnerable person might not survive. And when you combine untreated mental illness with substance abuse, what experts call co-occurring disorders, you get a population that's extremely high needs, but constantly shuffled between street, jail, hospital, and back again. Families try to intervene, but the law often blocks them. California's Lanham-Patrice Short Act makes it nearly impossible to force psychiatric care without proven immediate danger. By the time someone qualifies, the damage is usually done. And let's be clear, mental illness doesn't cause homelessness. But once you're out there, it makes escaping nearly impossible. No meds, no therapy, no stability, just a daily fight to survive inside your own head. Camping ban theater. In 2024, LA ramped up enforcement of the controversial camping ban, which prohibits sleeping in certain public spaces. On paper, it sounds like action. In reality, it just moves the problem around like a shell game with human beings. Cops show up, bulldoze tents, throw out belongings, and tell people to go. Where exactly? The nearest shelter? It's full. A motel? Too expensive. The next freeway overpass? Sure, until they come for that too. You can't ban people out of existence. But LA keeps trying. The city frames it as restoring public space. But whose public space? Parks are being fenced off. Benches are redesigned so you can't lie down. Bathrooms are locked. It's not just criminalizing homelessness. It's criminalizing existence. And when people lose their tents and IDs during sweeps, they lose their lifelines. No ID means no shelter intake, no job applications, no medical care. Each sweep is another step backward on a path already full of dead ends. Meanwhile, the optics are terrible. Videos of police trashing people's belongings circulate online. Public trust erodes. And the cycle repeats. More displacement, more outrage, no solutions. Even the LAPD admits this isn't working, but the orders keep coming because doing something, even if it fails, plays better politically than addressing the root causes. Absolutely. Here's the continuation of your expanded script from number 4, the suburban spillover onward, keeping the tone, flow, and density consistent. The suburban spillover. Homelessness isn't just an urban LA issue anymore. The crisis is spilling into the suburbs, Pasadena, the Valley, Torrance, even Orange County. Tents under palm trees. RVs parked permanently outside Trader Joe's. Suddenly, NIMBYs and gated communities are realizing you can't build a wall high enough to ignore this. But they're still trying. More cities are enacting local ordinances criminalizing loitering, parking, breathing too loudly, existing while poor. This isn't a city problem anymore. It's a regional emergency. Places like Santa Clarita and Glendale are reporting record spikes in visible homelessness. These areas don't have the infrastructure to support vulnerable populations. They were never designed for it. One local official in Burbank admitted they have 2 outreach workers for a population that now includes hundreds living in cars or under bridges. Local governments are reacting with panic, not planning. They're rushing to pass anti-camping ordinances, but offering no alternative housing. Some suburbs go as far as banning food distribution by churches or mutual aid groups, criminalizing compassion itself. The fragmentation of services between jurisdictions makes things worse. A person in Van Nuys might qualify for service in downtown LA, but has no transportation to get there. A shelter bed in Long Beach does nothing for someone living under a freeway in Pacoima. The result? People drift, constantly pushed from one city line to the next like human pinballs. And as the crisis expands, it's clear. LA County's patchwork response isn't just inefficient. It's inhumane. Climate crisis. Meet housing crisis. You think being homeless in LA is a mild experience because of the weather? Think again. LA hit record-breaking heat waves in 2024. Weeks of 105-degree F+ with no shade, no AC, no relief. People died. Quietly. Without a news alert. Climate change is making homelessness more brutal. More flooding, more fires, more nights where the pavement burns your skin. Meanwhile, shelters can't keep up. Cooling centers are underfunded. And in a twisted turn of irony, the very people contributing the least to climate change are suffering its worst effects. We're now seeing the rise of climate displacement within California. People pushed out of inland towns by wildfires or drought are landing in LA, only to find no affordable housing, and end up on the streets. They're not transit. They're climate refugees in their own state. Storms are another new threat. Flash floods tore through low-lying areas in early 2025, sweeping away tents and soaking sleeping bags. For the unhoused, a rainy night isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence. Then there's air quality. With more brush fires choking the sky, unhoused people breathe in toxic smoke without access to masks or filtered air. Respiratory issues skyrocket. Yards fill up. Again, no headlines. The climate crisis isn't coming. It's already here. And the people sleeping on LA's sidewalks are the canaries in the coal mine. They are living and dying at the intersection of every system we've failed to fix. The city of forgotten dreams. LA was always a city of dreamers. Now it's becoming a graveyard for dreams. Musicians busk next to tents. Screenwriters pitch Netflix shows while sleeping in their car. A barista making $17 an hour serves iced oat lattes to tech bros who just bought a 3-bed bungalow for $2.1 million. The American dream here isn't dead. It's just reserved for the rich. Everyone else? They're stuck in a surreal purgatory of overpriced housing, underpaid labor, and 24/7 survival mode. Artists used to come to LA to make it. Now, they come and realize there's no making it without a trust fund. Creatives are priced out of studios. Actors live 5 to a room. Musicians leave gigs and return to cars parked on Mulholland. Even professionals are struggling. Teachers, nurses, social workers, all considered middle class, are one rent hike away from disaster. Some commute from 2 hours away just to make ends meet. And let's talk about the kids. Over 12,000 law students are classified as homeless. They do their homework by flashlight, in shelters, in motels, in backseats. How does a child dream big when they're living small? The city's identity is changing. The bohemian, blue-collar, multicultural tapestry that defined LA is being replaced by a cold economic ladder with no rungs for bottom half. If dreams still live here, they're on life support. But who profits from the crisis? Let's ask the uncomfortable question. Who benefits from all this chaos? Because make no mistake, homelessness is an economy now. Billions flow through government contracts, nonprofit salaries, temporary shelter deals, consulting fees, and awareness campaigns. And somewhere in that maze, actual people slip through the cracks. Take LA's billion-dollar homeless budget. A huge chunk goes to administrative overhead. Another slice to developers charging sky-high rates for affordable housing that takes years to complete. And private security companies are cashing in, too, paid to manage encampments without addressing the cause. Nonprofits, many well-intentioned, are caught in a trap. Their survival depends on the problem not being solved. They're rewarded for outputs. How many beds filled, meals served, not outcomes like long-term stability or permanent housing placements. Meanwhile, politicians hold press conferences in front of new shelters that are already full. Real estate lobbyists write the laws. Tech billionaires donate a few million for PR points, while their companies drive up housing demand with 6-figure salaries and zero affordable units. It's a sick irony. The worse things get, the more money there is to be made from fixing it. LA doesn't have a homelessness crisis. It has a homelessness industry. And that means any real solution threatens the very people claiming to solve it. But here's the brutal truth. LA cannot survive like this. You cannot have a functioning city where tens of thousands of people are living in third-world conditions in a first-world economy, where housing is treated like a hedge fund portfolio instead of a human right, where empathy dies every time you scroll past a GoFundMe. And yet, here we are. People keep moving here, hoping they'll beat the odds. Meanwhile, locals who've lived here their whole lives are being priced out, pushed out, or permanently unhoused. LA isn't just in crisis. It is the crisis. Infrastructure is buckling. ERs are overwhelmed. Public transportation is overrun by people seeking shelter, not rides. Crime, often survival-based, is rising in ways data doesn't fully capture. The line between housed and unhoused is growing thinner by the day. Developers and investors are buying up land at record pace. But they're building units nobody can afford. Market-rate apartments sit half-empty, while tent cities explode. Supply isn't the issue, accessible supply is. The city's economic future is at risk. Businesses are leaving. Talent is fleeing. Tourism is declining. LA is reaching a tipping point where inequality is no longer background noise. It's the main event. If LA doesn't fundamentally rethink its relationship to housing, health, and humanity, it won't just be a failing city. It'll be a failed one. So, what now? Maybe you've tuned out the sirens. Maybe the tents blur into the background. Maybe you convince yourself this is just part of living in a big city. But here's a thought. What if we stopped pretending this was normal? Because the truth is, LA's homelessness epidemic isn't a mystery. It's not a natural disaster. It's the result of choices about housing, healthcare, policy, and power. And until the city starts choosing people over profits, compassion over criminalization, and homes over headlines, you better get used to stepping over sleeping bodies on your way to brunch. Because this is Los Angeles now. And it's not a movie. It's real. And it's only getting worse.